last week we were talking about the beginning of the healing journey. We've just experienced, we've just gotten conscious awareness of the wound that we've experienced with our relationship inside of ourselves, in our family dynamic, in our work, whatever kind of challenge that we had that brought us to circles, or that we're dealing with to heal. There's this healing, this wounding event. We become consciously aware of it. There's this, and then there's this soon after part of it. That's the beginning part. And we were looking at when was the first time you felt relief in that first little wounding event part. And that's what we looked at last week, in the resources, the words, the tools, the events that happened, the people in your life that helped you get some space, get some measure of relief. Now we're looking at the aftermath. We're in this
Mm,
place of the aftermath of the wound. We're come to terms with the wounding. It's like, okay, this happened. I can acknowledge it, but accepting it is a little bit more of a journey that happens in this in between part. And then consciously tending to the wound at the same time. So not only do we have to find a way to acknowledge and then begin to integrate what happened, but also tend to ourselves as we're going along, and tend to ourselves in a way that we might not have been tended to before, paying attention to how deep the wound goes and all of those things. And so, in this aftermath, thinking about folks wanting to hear our stories, really wanting to start to look at how these different words play into this in between part of our healing journey. The questions that I had around being sensationless: in what ways were you numb to yourself,
mm,
relationships, or life? And how are you still numb? Those two questions really show up in this in between, where it's like, how did this happen? And how can I make sure it doesn't happen again? And what ways am I still is still that way so I can change it and shift it?
yeah.
I used words for relation for you, Czar, and hopeless and for inspiration for you, Denard. And I'm putting it out there that I just came up with those words, and they may not apply to y'all. So if y'all have a word that's better suits the part of separate from or hopeless about, let me know, and I'll replace it in the questions just to kind of give it more of a sense of grounding, because I know
Mm,
mine, because that's my particular wound is was numbing.
mm,
So with
yeah.
inspiration, in what ways were you hopeless about yourself, relationships, or life, and how are you still hopeless? And then in relation, how in what ways are you separate from yourself, relationships, or life, and how are you still separate? Now, this part about your own medicine. There's a saying that that I've been saying to folks: give the gift to yourself that you so freely give to everyone else.
Mhm.
This is about the medicine that we carry, whether it's how we do that socially, giving ourself, our life force, all of our efforts to another person or institution or idea, or the skill that that we cultivated, that we built in our professions. We a lot of us have gone into our professions or our callings, especially with wanting to address a personal or a world problem. And so we got a particular set of skills, and we use
Mhm.
that to get our money and everything, but not necessarily for ourselves, like directly to the wound that we have, in ways that we can support ourselves, because we could know ourselves inside and out, which would help those skills even go further.
Mhm.
So, what is the gift you used to give away to everyone else that you finally started giving back to yourself? And that's the question for that. And so that's for y'all
Wow.
to sit with, be with, really sit in that. Dra- Gravitate toward the one that draws you. Don't try to answer all the questions. That you can do that on your
Mhm.
own time. In this one, really focus in on the one that really calls to you. Were you numb? Were you hopeless? Were you separate? Go there and feel into what those questions bring up for you.
Yeah, definitely. And when you mention that one, even with the relationless, you know, that where you're separate from yourself. I talk about that a lot with just even with authenticity, you know,
Hmm.
and having had trauma or critical life incidents, because I know everything is not necessarily trauma for people, but we've had critical life incidents where these things begin to happen, whether that's that relationship breakup, whether that's something that happened with childhood. Man, listen, let me tell you, when I looked at a lot of just as a mental health, just in the field, all of being in school for counseling and things like that, and I'm looking at all of the diagnostic criteria and all of this other kind of stuff. And I'm looking at how over 90% of the mental illnesses and diagnoses that we have all there, at the core of them, at the very essence of them, I have this ability to pull layers back. At the
Hmm.
very core of them is a relational breach.
Yeah.
Somewhere something happened relationally. Even schizophrenia, somewhere something happened relationally.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
people have been separated from their essence, separated from that core aspect of who they are, developed a certain personality to protect themselves. It wasn't that this personality developed as a vile thing, but somewhere we were separated from our most authentic selves. And what I'm finding even now is more people understand themselves only as a personality, not as an essence.
Right. Right. And
Mhm.
that's where like the intersection with the three of us with our neurodivergence, masking is a big thing.
Mhm.
And so when
Mhm.
you identify with your personality, then you don't have an actual self to return to because your personality is dependent on who you're interacting with or what you're
Yep.
interacting with.
Yep. Oh my gosh. So y'all think that, take those things into consideration as you think about these questions here, and then you can, we're gonna let some of y'all pop in on here, with being able to answer some of these questions. But that's just something to kind of take into consideration. That's just something I've seen, Mike. Man, I've just really seen it. That's why all of the work I do, I coin it as relationality specialist.
Hmm.
But it covers everything from mental health to relationships to spirituality and all that stuff. But the whole focus is mainly on getting us back to who we really are, being able to be in proper relationship with ourself, higher power if we have that, and and with others. You know.
Yeah. That's what I love about the Venn diagram overlap of your work with relationship and with grief,
Hmm.
because of the changes in relationship, they are inevitably going to bring up loss and
Yep.
grief that we have to
Yep.
process. And so to have those two things together, and especially with the separation being what one of the places that we have to go to, even when we go to healing, we separate the wound from everything else to make sure that it has the resources and the capacity that it needs to actually mend. And so
Hmm.
I love that I love imagining into that with your work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I went to DeVry, man. That's why I went.
See, this DeVry shade. I didn't come back here for the DeVry shade.
That's why I went to DeVry. Donald in here, but he went to ITT Tech. He did, he got a lower level education, but
You went to Phoenix.
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh man, Denard, where'd you go? Where did Denard go? Gangster Rap Society. He did y'all know Denard was a gangster rapper? Y'all didn't know that, did y'all?
Mm. Oh yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
I
Denard is
can see it.
where he is. Is that what I was saying last week? He's in the chat. He's over here mining these chat responses for the patterns
please
and the
do.
nuggets and all that. So I love that. He's paying for gold over there. So y'all make
Yeah.
sure that y'all put y'all's responses over there as y'all sink into it. And I recognize too that as we're talking, you start to sink into those questions and you find a little intimate thing, and it's like, ooh, I'm not sure exactly how to share that. It might have to be perfect for me to actually share it, and nah, it doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
Like Zara said, it still needs to be timely, but it doesn't have to be packaged the right way.
Mhm.
You can
Absolutely.
use language that might sound like a kid's language, or that you might think that other folks might not understand. But given the genius that's in this room, not just the three facilitators, but also the y'all, we'll
Mhm.
be able to come to some kind of understanding about what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thinking about those questions that's in there, in the chat, y'all, does anybody have anything that comes up for you that just kind of highlights that? I'm really, man, my mind is really looking at, I've always been, I used to tell the members all the time, I need to go sit in some of Mike's rooms because the somatic aspect of our lives and feeling separated from the numb in the body or just not even feeling where
Hmm.
everything is it has always been a thing with me. I can't even go to the doctor, bro. And they say, So what do you feel the pain? What is on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm like, Then they say, is it a sharp pain or a dull pain? I'm like, uh, uh. Where do you feel it?
Yo.
In your back or in your? That when we did the masterclass, when you and I did one, and you were doing the thing, you're like, where do you feel? And it's like, man, it took me forever. It's like, oh, you know what? It's right here in my neck. But it took me a minute
Right.
because I feel like a lot of my life has been a lot of separation.
Yes.
You know, just a separation from the body, separation from having to, just different traumas and different things that I've gone through, different relational breaches and things that I've gone through, and just kind of trying to navigate that space. We sort of get that disconnection. And I'm thinking about this part of where you say separation from ourselves. End up with that separation from myself, which to me even leads to this hopelessness and things that we just kind of feel in that inspiration-less part where it's just all freaking connected for me, man.
Yes,
So
exactly. That's exactly the whole thing, man. It's like all three of them are connected, and one of the best and healthiest ways for us to be able to even process some things is to break it down. So yeah,
yes.
they're all intertwined. And what about this pocket? Because like how you're describing that separate from is like parallel to how I describe my numbness. And how my particular numbness came to be is like I was being so sensitive as a little autistic Black boy, being so very sensitive that I couldn't help but respond. The sensitivity would come in really strong, and so my response would be just as strong. So meltdowns and screaming and wild limbs and all that and all those things. So to numb, it's all right. I've gotten punished, so now I'm feeling the consequences of that, and now I'm going to respond to how I feel with that punishment. So if I feel frantic, instead of me responding to frantic, I'm going to feel scared because I'm scared that my frantic action is going to bring consequence. So now I think that I'm just scared and I forget about the initial thing. That's my particular numbness, not even knowing what's underneath the response, emotion.
Mine ended up being a hardness. Mine was a hardness, having to stand, one, like you said, is not being able to really communicate what it was. And I mean, I'm banging my head on the wall and, all kind of, again, unfortunately wasn't diagnosed
Right.
when I was little with this, but it's like this whole autistic brain thing. But it's like, and then experiencing certain things in my life. I experienced some physical abuse, some sexual abuse, and all those kind of things. And mine turned to, I'm not breaking. And would literally stand and be punched in the chest. And it's like, I'm not finna cry. I'm not finna cry. And so I developed a sense of, I have a high tolerance for pain, but I don't necessarily know that it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I want to jump out and say, no, it's not a good thing. And at the exact same time,
and
it was good for at the time, because at the time to have any more than what you did have would have meant a whole another trajectory of your life.
Exactly. Absolutely. All right, y'all. Listen, I see a couple of hands. Let's get them so we can get some of y'all in here. Go ahead, Donald. Chime in. Donald going once? That's that ITT tech over there. Donald goes.
For real. I think I just proved your point. Man, I mean, my tuition was a whole lot less than yours, I'm sure.
Ooh, I know, I'm still paying for it.
So I think what comes to mind for me when it comes to the numbness and the numbness, the which part was it? How do I still feel separate, or how did I? In the past, I felt a lot more separate than I am now, right? And I think where it stopped and where I started to feel more connected is when I stopped marketing myself. I noticed for a long time there's this like this sort of synergy when it comes to relations with people and how we talk about business and our careers and all that kind of stuff. There's so much talk around how we advertise ourselves, how we market ourselves. And I was doing that. I was doing a lot of that. As a matter of fact, someone sold me on the idea, since I was in sales and everything, that because I came from such an artist background, being a sound designer and sound effects engineer and all that kind of stuff, that I could take that creative and artisticness and use that to my strength when it comes to communication, when it comes to sales, when it comes to clients and all that kind of stuff. And I think what it was is that I started to feel like somewhat of a fraud, in the sense that here I had something, and yes, I was using it for gain, and I was using it for gain financially and success in my career. And I was advertising myself and marketing myself a certain way. I became more of a brand than became a human. And so,
Mm-hmm.
having to,
Yeah.
forced to step away from it, because life is like going, no, 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 I need you to be authentic. I need you to feel this. I need you to feel that your father has dementia. I need you to feel that your father needs help. I need you to feel that, he's been taking care of you all your life, and all the things that you've been paying attention and learning from him. I need you to turn that around and offer it back to him. And so when that happened, and I got connected with more, my community here and community in faith, I'm able to now kind of use what was intended for me, my authenticity, my genuineness, for something other than a financial gain, something other than looking popular on Facebook. Telling friends I don't talk to for years, hey, this is what's going on with me. Let me paint a picture for you, that kind of thing. And I think what's really getting me out of my numbness is that I'm asking that of other people. I ask them, like, if you're going to be in front of me, I need you to take the curtains back. I need you to pull open those curtains, because I can't I can't look at that and reflect that back anymore. So I think that's really what's getting me to relate again and get out of this numbness.
Okay.
I really dig that. I can't look at that and then reflect that back, because those mirror neurons and us
Mm-hmm.
mirroring that those that or responding in kind to what is presented to us is so much of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Go ahead, Kayla. Jump in.
Yeah, I think mine is relationless because I grew up. My father was a raging alcoholic, so when people always felt that they had a certain amount of loyalty to family and relationships, I don't have that because I've been hurt by family more than strangers. And
Mm-hmm.
then, when I got married, I thought, oh, okay, because he comes from a big family. Well, that even made it worse because his family was even my ex-husband's family was even worse than my family, you know. And so
Ooh.
I just
Uh-oh, we're losing you, Kayla.
how evil they could do to each other. They are just like, oh, I'm gonna be loyal to him. I don't care what they do and this and that. I was like, y'all crazy because that makes absolutely no sense to me, So I'm completely separated. I don't care if a person is related to me. My thing is how I am treated, regardless of who you are. That's what family means to me, per se. And so, what I've used to give away, and now I give back to myself, is my power to speak up. I gave it away for so many years, and just I felt like I was letting people. I gave away my voice to a certain extent, and I gave away my fight. And so now I'm taking it back so that I could fight for myself because I've always been my mother, who is who grew up to be very shy. Out of all her siblings, she's the shyest of six. And she always told me, if you don't, she had to learn, if you don't fight for yourself and become an advocate for yourself, no one else will. And that was
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that my mother used to always advocate for me and my brother. So now, as an adult, I teach my daughter the same thing. I only have one child. So I teach her the importance of advocating for yourself and to speak up, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't want her to fall into that same cycle, being newly married and everything. It's just so easy to fall into it before you know it. But
Absolutely.
that's what I'm taking back. I'm taking back my power, and for me to speak up and not to allow people just to walk all over me for the sake of keeping the peace. If I don't like something, it's so they don't have to agree with me, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
say my piece. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'm at.
Okay. Love it. Love it. Yeah. Robin? And
Hi, I had to find my mute. Okay, this is I've spoken to at least the two of you, Mike and Zara. I haven't been in Denard's classes yet.
good. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
just playing. I'm just playing. Just joking.
I'm glad you're making me laugh because
Well,
Mike's at fault here because he
Mercy.
said,
Mercy.
yeah, he said,
Robin, where's your mute button? We need
well, now that
to. I'm teasing.
yeah, I know. Now that I'm going to tell you, but actually, I'm glad you're making me laugh because you said, don't edit, don't, blah, 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 don't, whatever comes to your heart. And of course, mine is, well, not of course, but mine is relationless. So let's see. I've told you guys in some of these that I'm like, I'm 67. It's so weird when I even say that. I have grown children. I've lived a life, but about 30 years ago, maybe more, and it's going to bring up something here, but because I can't even say the word, I was violently raped, obviously survived. And you asked me how and Mike, you said, have it come up. And I'm like, oh God, why is this coming up in this call today? Because you asked that question, how did you deal with it? And this is to share also, and maybe some guidance. I don't know. I didn't deal with it because of society stigma in that area, in that arena. And I hope everyone knows what I'm talking about. I got up the next day, went to work, and had a breakdown. And I had a 10-year-old boy, and I was divorced, but and then about 30-40 days later, I had a mental breakdown, not sure what was going on. Anyway, got into therapy. I just want to say, the reason I'm sharing this is because you asked that question. It was so not dealt with because of society stigmas and things like that. I did deal with it slowly, but surely it didn't come overnight. The Me Too movement certainly helped because it gave that aha moment of, this is where I didn't deal with it. I'm not necessarily pointing fingers, but it's kind of strange to say I should have probably pointed fingers a long time ago. And so there's many things that happen to us that society just doesn't support us. So we don't know how to relate to it and deal with it until, and I will say in these 30 years, trust me, there was some bad decisions. There was some things that went on because I probably wasn't dealing with that situation and how it affected me. So I think that's all I'm going to say. If you guys want to say anything profound about, when things happen to us, like really bad things, whether it's family or things like that, and society tells us, keep going. Well, you guys actually shared of what you guys been through. Mike, I'm shocked that you dealt, because the human being I hear on the other end, that you dealt with what you dealt with in childhood, and same with you, Czar. I think we're all in that same bucket of, how do you deal with it? Baby step. I don't know, baby steps, but the society certainly has a part in it, and and going back to the self and situation and therapy and groups, and I mean, it's saved my life. So I'm going to be quiet. I hope that made sense.
It did.
Okay, thank you.
It did. It did make sense. I think one of the biggest questions that I've had to ask for myself, even in navigating some of these things in my life, the different dramas and traumas and, slap your mamas and all of those kind of things, has been something, and I can't credit it to anything other than sensing that it was just God's call in my heart to say, who are you going to be? Who are you designed to be? And then making that my highest priority. It's like, yeah, there's always something around us that has happened to us. And sometimes we kind of forget that we're an energy too. And so while life is happening to us, how are we happening to life? And again, I can't even tell you 100% when that aha moment kind of happened. But there's so many things that we are afraid, like you were saying, we're afraid to even say to certain. I remember my first instances of therapy. I was afraid to tell my therapist, and I'm 6, 7, somewhere in there, 6, maybe even 8. No, I wasn't 8 yet, but it was like afraid to tell my therapy that the monsters that I had been seeing, and some of you have heard this story, was humans. And so I actually, when she asked me to draw these monsters, I drew my favorite monster. And my mother was, this don't make sense. This is his favorite toy. This is his favorite monster. But the real monsters was humans. But something in me, even at that age, couldn't bring myself to tell this woman that the monsters that I'm afraid of are humans. Because I saw them treating each other in the ways that I saw them. It just, something didn't resonate with me. And so having that theme in my life, my whole life, and I think we all have that. There's something in you at the core of you that is in essence that may not be the way society is living, but somewhere we have to divorce the opinion of society and be true to what we're really sensing and what we're really feeling at our core. But anyway,
Yeah.
anything to that, Mike? Go ahead.
Bruh. First, I'm gonna let that breathe real quick because you were getting ready to jump right away from it, weren't you? I'm gonna let that breathe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That call from the inside. That's that inspiration. That goes into that inspiration, and connecting that to what society isn't offering. It's like that's one of the reasons why something like circles exists. Why so many of these other things that fill these gaps that societies don't fill exist. I remember thinking very early on, like, why didn't I learn about emotions in school?
Right.
And how to process them damn things, and how come I didn't learn what the life trajectory of a kind of a relationship is? All relationships have phases and cycles and lifespans. How come I didn't learn about that? And so being and doing and expressing from that inner voice, or that fully aligned self, that authentic, whatever it is that you want to speak it as, to live from the inside out, is giving your contribution to the world. Like, just like Zara was saying, how you touch the world, not just the world touching you. It's not just the world touching you the whole time. You touch the world as well. And so whether you touch it with something borrowed that somebody gave you from long ago, or you're giving it exactly who you are, you're touching the world.
All right. Go ahead, Eva.
Sorry, I'm just going to say that some of the stuff that you said made me get a little bit choked up, because I've had like the whole numbness thing and not really feeling like societal values are appropriate for human nature. I don't.
Yes.
Right? Like our values.
Who's that mic open? Somebody ordering something? I can't see who it is.
Yeah,
I got
Camilla. Yeah.
I got her. Go ahead.
But like that, my pain tolerance is ridiculously high. Also, I'm not even joking. I was walking on the street to school and I got hit by a semi.
Goodness.
And those like sponge toffee chocolate bars? I had one of those in my front pocket. And my sister was with me and I gave it to her, and it was literally powder. And I'm just like not crying, not anything. And I gave it to her, and the ambulance came and they're just like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I think I'm okay." And then they tried to get me to walk to the car, but my kneecaps were literally like not even in the front of my legs anymore.
My
But
goodness.
I didn't even know. I crushed my finger closing it in a bus door window. And I was like, ow, this hurts. My mom's like, oh, just sit on it. It'll help with the throbbing. I'd crushed my entire finger. The next day it was black, like black, this huge black swollen thing. And my mom felt so bad. Like I just got the front of my neck tattooed. And after like 4 hours, I was like, I'm done now.
Mm.
But the societal values thing, one of the things for me that I've really, because I have recently found faith, and some of the synchronicities between where I'm at and what I've gotten from church, even if it's not the church I go to, the very first, because everybody kept on telling me that I love to open hearted and it leaves me to open for damage. The very first session of church, the very first service I went to was about God's love and about how we are to love each other as he loves us, and that we are to love each other despite damage, despite pain, and despite what is happening for us, and despite what is going on for them, we are to love each other. And that was literally the first time in my life where I was like, I'm not made wrong.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Come on now.
What do you mean?
Come on now. That's
But
it.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's saying keep going.
So it was really like what I have found in faith and what I've found in myself. There's a lot of synchronicities, but the numbness, yes. But like when I have my limit, I'm done. I am lucky in the fact that, Zara, I'm like you, that I had therapy starting pretty early, and I'm great at compartmentalizing other people's shit. They can dump and vent to me all they need, all they want.
you're
Yes,
fine.
I'm ready for it. I can hear it. I will take it. I'm not going to take it home, but my own shit.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah. You
That's
mentioned just something key in there before the other guys jump in too, to say it's like what you said in there, I'm not made wrong. And see, and that's what I want all of us to understand. That's one of the things that we were trying to highlight in this. Healing means return to wholeness. And we learned somehow we learned how to numb. We learned how to separate from ourselves. We learned that how we were showing up authentically was something was wrong with it. And I'm doing air quotes when I say that, but that's not the truth. That's actually your design. The word, what is it? The word vulnerability. It actually means the ability to be wounded. Now, of course, none of us wants to get wounded, but it means the ability to be wounded. This is the way we were actually designed, to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And now when we hear that word, it becomes, oh, that's a vulgar word, or ooh,
Yeah.
and everybody's walking around having to be careful who you share this with. And I don't disagree that we shouldn't be careful, but some of the messaging that comes from be careful who you share that with causes us to put up shells that are unnecessary.
And like one of the things that I feel like I've learned about myself is that the capacity that I love, because I love very deeply, is also the capacity in which I can be hurt. They're both the same. So because I love so deeply, I hurt a lot as well. But I wouldn't give up one for the other, because I love the fact that I can give this much of myself to somebody.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you, Ava. And before we get to Stacy, I want to bring Denard up in here, because we've been sharing about like our own particular flavor of support, what we serve folks with on circles, and you being the inspiration that you are. Again, I want to check in with you about that hopeless, the hopeless word in there, and if that applies, and like what in your own journey, in your own story, had you live from your inspiration, and where in your life were you inspirationless?
Yeah. Thank you, bro, for the question. And just real quick tangent because I got to be petty real quick. Who invited James to the group? I just saw the picture. All right, let's go back. Real quick. All right. No, all jokes aside. There's so much coming up for me. I'm gonna be very clear with this, Eva, because you just spoke words to my heart. Everything that was said here to me articulates that everything that the world tells us is wrong. What you kind of highlighted is when we have the capacity, and I didn't answer the question, to feel deeply, to love deeply, it just says that we recognize that the heart has capacity for humanity and including ourselves, right? So to me, and from my walk, really what you just described is that I have characteristically the heart of Jesus, right? That's what you just described to me. You have characteristically the heart of the ecosystem of the world that recognizes that we can connect to others, we can connect to ourselves, and we will suffer deeply because we cannot walk by those that are wounded and not feel like the Good Samaritan and see the wound and smell the wound and just walk by it because we once knew what that wound felt like when people walk by us. So it's impossible to reject and abandon yourself anymore because you see yourself in others, right? So to me, what you're describing is active healing, right? That's what you're describing. And while it doesn't feel good, it may not seem good, but that goodness is now enveloped and wrapped in a heart that seeks good, right? And the goodness is not just solely for you anymore, right? It's too good to be kept to yourself, like my brother says. So for me, hopelessness, it actually, the word in itself actually derives the reality that what I feel can be found in the word itself, right? The hope. And this is why we have to start with the sensing, right? I cannot aspire for hope if I lose sight of my breath, right? So myself, as I started to, with something's coming up for you, bro. What's coming up?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You just hitting it. Go ahead.
I appreciate it. Oh, that's the cornbread tastes good. Okay, I'll follow. All right. And then the last thing too, my experience with hopelessness came coupled with helplessness, right? It's when I started to feel like the resources, the tools, the language, the information I had could not enact a swelling in the emptiness of that heart that had capacity to suffer well and then to feel and love in a direction well, right? But it couldn't do the things for others that I was doing for others for me in that moment. And I was like, that's where I started to feel that there was something wrong with me, right? And so in that moment when I'm sitting on the curbside after I'm in a car pressing on the gas to drive on I-10 until it goes off the highway and recognizing the car stops by itself. This is not those things where you didn't press too hard on the gas. No, listen, I knew how to drive it. I was in a NASCAR before. I knew how to get to the point where I wanted to take my life. But to recognize that same car I'm now looking at the car on the outside, recognizing that even in my helplessness and my hopelessness, I was able to sit on the curb and describe what Czar described to us as group facilitators, a moment of relief, right? I was trying to cope through alcohol. I was trying to cope through smoking. But in this moment, I just needed to learn how to breathe again. Oh, that felt good for me. I just need to learn how to breathe again. So for me, the hope and that inspiration said, Denard, that's what God said to me. Denard, you still have breath, so you still have purpose. You are not the originator or the orchestrator of everything that you went through. I still got stuff for you to do. And even in this moment, you're going to sit in it. So for me, to answer the question, is hopelessness, when it was coupled with helplessness, put me in the best position to breathe again. Right. But I had to desire that reality to recognize that what I was seeking, although I could not feel it, didn't mean it did not still exist because I still had breath. That's why we must sense, and then we must relationally connect to that breath in our body, because you can't leave that space without feeling it, right? Because that's when you go into autopilot. That's when you go into this moment of helplessness and hopelessness, because you're moving ahead of the resource that really gives you life, that breath. Woo.
Whoo.
Everybody take
Come
a
on.
big old, gigantic, slow, deep breath in and receive that.
My goodness.
Well, what the hell? How am I supposed to follow that one?
By being yourself.
Authentically
Yep.
you. I
Be
was just
yourself. You already know. Be you.
I said
authentically
that
you.
to be myself. I sometimes I joke way too much. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to answer, like, I'm just highly inspired right now. Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to answer the questions. Because that's what I struggled with for, and I know how long it was. The complete numbness was started in 2017, so 7 years, where it was after being physically abused by my husband when he shoved me in a counter. And then the church, like, I call it the church because it's the people, right? And the
Okay.
church told me just to go home and just go back after 2
Mhm.
days, and that's what started the numbness and numbness in my body. Yeah, I'm still, like, I'm aware of my negative coping, kind of like semi self-harm stuff that I do because of trauma. But I'm aware of it and I'm, like, wanting to heal from it.
Mhm.
So that in my body, and then relational, like, well, I would isolate, and it didn't help that my home was in, like, at the lake in the woods, and our house was, like, away from everyone else's house.
Mhm.
And I was struggling with postpartum depression, like, and then was isolated already, and my husband was just more absent than present, so that didn't help. And then yeah, and just, yeah, inspiring. I wasn't inspired because I was so stuck in the numbness, and I remember being, like, inspired to do, like, things that were not good for me, and that was just, again, more destruction. And it
Yeah.
was like deciding to separate myself from what hurt me in the first place that brought me the peace that I
Mhm.
needed. And yeah, like, Denard brought up the coping with alcohol, and I did, like, I grew up with an alcoholic father, so I knew, like, that wasn't something I wanted to go with that route, but I was so numb that I was ashamed about the numbness. So I used the alcohol to numb me from the fact that I was numb in the first place. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was weird, like a
So
weird time in my life. But
mhm.
I thank God. I thank God for all that I've gone through with his help, and I've overcome. And yeah, like, I'm so excited for the healing, and it will
Yeah.
come. I know it will. Yeah.
It's already here. It's in the reality of it is it's already here because
Yeah.
as you do these things, even when we're talking about the sensational, the relational, the inspirational, it's all connected. So just real quick before we get Dana and then kind of close up after this, but it's like ironically, and I've said this to some of you all recently. I said, we go to Mike's rooms and he's talking about the breathing and the different things like that. The word breath means spirit. All right. So it's like all that is, we frame it in the mental
That
health,
part.
we frame it in the mental health lens, but really it's saying return to your spirit, that air through you, that life force in you, that breath in you. And you also mentioned the word, Stacy, I'm inspired. Inspired is also where we get the word in, it comes from the words in spirit. And so all of this is really about a return. All of these things that we have experienced as breaches is really about a return to the spirit of our being, or to that authentic self, to that core self, to who you really are. All right, go ahead, Dana, real quick, and then we'll.
Okay, I'm just so inspired just to hear that you guys were exactly where I was at and what I did, because I've been ashamed. But to see that you guys took that and you took your pain and you turned it into power, and how much you help and inspire others, is just so empowering. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Dana. You're welcome. Juanita, go ahead real quick, and then after this, we won't take any more hands. I want us to wrap up.
There's purpose in the pain. You'll get through it. It's just a season.
It's an indication that pain oftentimes too is that indication that we need to stay connected to spirit or return to spirit, to that core aspect of who we are. Pain is a signal. It's a sign, right? And it's showing us that something is pulling us away, or something has the potential to pull us away if we don't catch it, if we allow it. All right. So just kind of keep those things in mind. Denard, and I want to, Carly, if it's okay, I want to make sure that we get ready to wrap up. Unless it's really quick. Is it really quick, Carly? No? Yes? No? Maybe so.
No, we don't hear you, Carly.
She might be muted. You know them old time circles folks don't be unmuting.
Yeah, boy, I
they
tell
be
you.
they be having the whole last sermon to themselves and stuff.
Who you
They just
talking
crack.
about?
Ooh, oh, who you talking
Go
about?
ahead, Carly.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
So next time you go to the doctor's appointment and they ask on a scale of 1 to 10 what your pain level is, are you going to be able to answer it?
I'm gonna be like, it's in the spirit, doc. I've gotten better at it. I have gotten better at it. But I'm still working on it. I'm still working on being in that connection with the body and staying connected with the body in that way. And some things as I do this breathe and things, and finding and feeling myself, feeling my body, feeling where I am really, and coming back in the present, I'm getting better at it. But it has always been a challenge. Always been a challenge. Yeah. So fellas, any final thoughts from either of you in regards to this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Denard be the one to finish this one off, because man, oh man, that boy moved me.
Don't he do it?
You
Both of
silly.
y'all,
No,
Don't he do it?
both of y'all
yeah,
moved
no,
that.
no.
You saw me
I
pull the
don't have.
organ out when he was
Oh
talking. I
yeah, I
had to
did
pull
see
the.
that. I did see that. I
Stop
meant
it!
to say
Stop
something
it!
about
Stop
it, but he
it!
was cooking, so I didn't want to disturb the man.
Stop
But
it!
yeah, I saw you pull the organ out.
Stop it! Stop it! I don't. I honestly, man, like my heart is full. I definitely feel like crying when I hear people are going through so much, and like why you all credit us, I don't really think y'all get it, man.
Right.
Like we can't continue on our healing journey without y'all. Like we
Yeah.
and so my only thing, man, is just I think it takes, and this is not a comparison. I'm just gonna just say this. It's not a comparison. I think there's so much more humility to allow someone to pour into you at a space when you knew if things were differently, you wouldn't need us, right? I think it just for you to show up in the way that you're showing up, notice those those things that activate you as you're talking, but to trust that the level of trust, that's all I want to call you all into. That when you felt the sunkenness of your the weight of the burdens of what you're going through and you felt like you couldn't trust again, haha, I got you. Prove today that you can trust and love again because you gave us an opportunity, a gift of your heart, even what you shared, to trust Mike before you knew Mike, right? To trust him with his own story, to trust us, to trust Czar with his story since he was 7 years of age, right? To know since he was 12 who he wanted to be, and know that the world, the ebbs and flows, and the societal expectations were beating against him. For him to say that now he knows clearly, right?
Yeah.
And it's not simply in alignment with who he is, but how you allow us to show up. So beyond common courtesy and cheap cliches, y'all, I think it would be kind of us to even offer to you all that the love and action that you're providing to us by just listening to three boys in the band group. Sidebar, James ain't in my group right now, but to just give us an opportunity to be listened to. Do y'all understand how many times I, as a black boy, was not listened to?
Come on, man.
Right.
So thank you. And I don't need to add you to that. I'm saying thank you. Not for you, just thank you. You are the embodiment of what thanking someone means, right? For showing up as yourself, to allow us to show up as ourselves. That's what this space means. That's when you can actually sense, you can relate, and then you can inspire when you show up as yourself. That's all Zara is saying. Becoming back to oneself means I can show up as myself. Y'all know what I say. It takes too much energy to be fake.
Yes.
right? So I'm just grateful for that opportunity, the gift that was given in this space to just be heard.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anything, Mike? You good?
Yeah. Yeah. With that, y'all have heard the different com compartments of inspiring, sensing, relating, and how those are intertwined. Last time we talked about the relief, the space that we get. This time we've been talking about the aftermath. Next time we're going to be talking about the ending, the quote unquote ending, which is always just a transition to a new beginning. And so there's ways that we may not finish the way that we start or with the force that we have in the middle. And so we're going to, I'm hoping, what I'm hoping to do is bring forward like our, the three of our signature practices. We offer these things to y'all all the time. You might hear us say it to all the newbies that come across us and ask the same question that y'all asked like months ago. And so, so that you have something that when things seem like they're done, but they're not, when the
Mm,
bone has kind of come together and you can put some pressure on it, but you can't quite run. So you need that little bit of extra healing at the end to
mm,
push through and really mend yourself together. And you need a routine, a practice, a tool to just help you truck through that last little bit rather than returning back and wounding yourself again. That's what we're going to be focused on in this last session next week.
mm. Wow.
Woo, woo.
Mike, Denard, thank y'all, man. I just really appreciate it. I really count it an honor and privilege to share space with you two fellas. And we joke around a lot, but I really honor and admire and love these brothers. And just for what they do, who they are. Yeah, and
Yeah.
actually that's the way it goes. It's for who they are and what comes from who they are. That
Mm,
inspired action that comes from them being who they are. And that's the aim for all of our lives, is to get to the space where we're just being who we are. And then all of our doings just become inspired action, that in spirit action. So I hope this session was good for y'all. We got one more week left of this. And I hope all of y'all kind of chime in and come in for that. And are taking this to heart. And I hope that it's helping you and supporting you with wherever you are on your journey. Now, listen. If these are the kind of things you want, I always say let circles know. If you have any complaints, though, it's 1-866-232-2040. That's the number to Chick-fil-A. You can call them and let them know that you have complaints about circles. All right, and it'll be their pleasure to help you. But in the meantime,
Yeah. Gets me every time.
but do you
Can you imagine?
really know the number though? Like, is that do
yeah,
you really know?
that is the
Like,
number.
that's
That's the
okay.
corporate number. That's corporate. Don't y'all
Yeah.
deal with the store. Don't deal with the local store. Call
Mercy,
corporate. When you got an issue, call corporate. Ain't nobody got time for
mercy.
this lower level.
He had this number memorized. Oh my
No, I
god.
pulled it up. I pulled it up on Google. 866.
Okay. All right. All right.
Anyway, y'all, listen. I hope it's helpful to you all. I know it is. But thank y'all for allowing us to be able to walk alongside you. All right. Now, listen, y'all go have a good weekend. Don't do nothing that we wouldn't do. Don't go be busting up nothing and causing yourself to need more healing. Stick to yourself.
Mhm.
Hold on to yourselves. Stay close to your core and don't let it go. All right, y'all. I'll holler at y'all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Peace, folks.
Take care of yourselves, y'all.
Peace. Yeah, get on out of here. Y'all ain't got to go home. You ain't got to go home.
But you can't stay here.
But you can't stay here. Yeah, no, you got to go. You got to go. I loved y'all, but you got to go. All right, y'all. I'll let y'all later. Peace. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Denard.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.